What's up, YouTube? All right, take two because the first time the audio didn't work. Welcome to Still Unsponsored, and this is not our normal thing. Normally, we're a marketing podcast, but this time I'm talking about a little quirk since I've been getting into live stream and looking at all the gear associated with it, and trying to come up with best kit for what I'm doing professionally, which is trying to figure out how to make live streaming like a channel that produces customers. But in the process, we've got to figure out how to make ourselves look good, and it scratches my little photography slash computer nerd itch. So there you go. So with Corona, everyone's working from home, and there's just been a total rush on all things audio, video, web conferencing, live streaming type equipment. And so I'm going to try and help you out choosing what's the right gear for what. So that whether you're pursuing creative or professional endeavors, you kind of know what to select. So if you're live streaming or you're just doing basic content creation, these are sort of three of the quick things that will probably come up when you start to search for best camera for ... Best camera for live streaming. It's going to be the Sony or the Logitech, and we're going to talk about reasons why. Best content camera, that kind of thing. It's probably not the 5100. It's probably 6100 and probably the M50. But anyway, I'm going to break down what the pros and cons of these different cameras are for you while you look at three of me, so you can kind of see live what's going on. And so rather than doing a constant flip back and forth, you can kind of watch what the actual output would be. So I think this is kind of a cool comparison versus the more camera nerd way of doing it, which is like show you, hyper slow motion and what the cool kids are going to do. This is more like practical application. So we're going to go through this. Meanwhile, you can kind of watch the different screens here and see how it looks. So first things first, let's talk about ease of use. Right there. So the Logitech is obviously it's a plug and play webcam. So a lot of us have laptops, and we used to travel a lot. We used to go a lot of places, and be in meetings a lot. And so the webcam was perfect, or the the laptop was perfect, and the webcam in it did the job. My laptop has not come off its dock since February, essentially. And so that's why there's a big rush on all things webcam, because now people are in fixed desktops again. Hey, we thought that world was gone, but now it's back. Thank you, global pandemic. And the webcam that is generally considered to be the best is this Logitech C920. And compared to a FaceTime camera, it's definitely better. Compared to anything that's in any PC laptop, it would crush it, as the FaceTime camera would crush most PC laptop cameras. But you can kind of see, compared to the other cameras, it gets its ass beat, basically. But back to ease of use. It's plug and play. You plug in the USB thing. You need no extra features. You're in business. When you push log on to your video conference, it turns on. When you push log out, it turns off. It goes with you. It's easy to use. Just like a speaker mic on your desktop, which I would encourage you to get. Not one of these for video conferencing. Important. So there you go. Next question. Can it be used as a webcam? Which, in the case of a Logitech, is obviously its intended use. With the case of the Sony and the Canon M50, the answer is yes, with caveats. So you need a thing called a Elgato Cam Link or a video capture card, something like that. This is going to cost you, for a good one, the Elgato Cam Link 4K, if it's in stock, thanks to Corona, it's going to cost you about $120, something like that. So it's your camera plus the capture card. And we're going to talk about why the Sony is the best for this application. But yes, it can be used with the Cam Link. The Canon, this is, again, thanks Corona, in a positive time this way. Canon decided to release beta firmware for the beta webcam utility, or the Canon webcam utility beta, however they say it. And it's really cool. Like, big kudos to Canon for doing that, because like awesome. You know, you help the world out, especially for us nerds. But it is definitely beta-y. So it only works in web-based, web-based applications. So it doesn't work in FaceTime. Caveats: it doesn't work in Streamlabs. It doesn't work in Zoom. It doesn't work in Skype. Now, there's ways around that. I have another video that might be linked here where I show you that. But yeah, it's rough. It's also slow to start up. So you're going to see this little Canon, thing as the camera is turning on and establishing its stream with the laptop, or you're at the computer, whatever. Not really a big deal, because it takes, about 10 seconds, and then you're in business. So there's that. I should say also, with the Canon and the Sony, you're going to need a DC adapter. So you really need two pieces in the case of the Sony, and one additional piece in the case of the Canon. And basically what the DC adapter is it looks like a battery, but it's got a jack on the bottom that you plug in. And interestingly, both Sony and Canon designed that for this use case. So it's not that hack, it works. But then that allows you to plug it in and you're good to go. So to use the Canon and to use the Sony as webcams, you need a clean HDMI out. And this is what separates the two cameras. The Sony has it, the Canon does not. The Canon, the only way to use it as a webcam is with the webcam utility beta. The webcam utility, yeah, something like that. I don't know, come on, we'll clean up that name, Canon. The Logitech obviously doesn't apply because it's only a webcam, and so it again doesn't apply. Sony. So Sony does this out of the box. You plug in an HDMI cable and boom, you're looking at clean, awesome HDMI out, no problems. The Canon does not do that. If you plug in an HDMI cable to a Canon M50, what you get is the same the same output that's coming out onto the screen. So that means the focus brackets that would be around your face. That means all the info that's on the screen that's saying what your settings are. You can hit the info button and get those to go away, and you can set it to manual focus to get the focus brackets to go away, and then hit the info button again. But then you're set with manual focus, and you're set with, you basically have to stay glued to your microphone. And if you're watching these test videos, you'll notice that the cameras are actually quite actively auto-focusing, both of them, all three of them. And so it might not be that noticeable if you've got it set to manual focus, because your face would just be moving slightly in and out of focus, but it also would depend on what glass you're using. So, the bigger the aperture, the more light you're letting in, the more blurry your background, the more important that autofocus is. And so if you're going for like a really artsy background, you're going to be headed towards the Sony for live streaming, that is. And the HDMI out. Let's talk about quality. Running 3 cameras and doing a screen share, my MacBook Pro is being pushed to the limit here, so things are a little bit rough. So obviously the Canon and the Sony are both awesome. Independently, if you didn't have them side by side, you would think that both of them were light years ahead of the Logitech, and they are. They're both awesome. You can't really go wrong. It's like, which flavor do you like? Now, coming into this experiment, I was a Canon guy. Leaving this experiment, I might be a Sony guy. I don't know yet. But for live streaming, I'm definitely a Sony guy. So I just like this look with the Sony better than I'm liking the Canon look. And yeah, I've tweaked this a little bit more, maybe. And there are some oddities that we'll talk about here in a second. But, I think they're both good. You're not going to go wrong with either one. So if you're out creating content, each camera has its intended use. Let's just say that for now. Um, so as you know, start to think about why you would want to upgrade from a webcam to a digital camera that, or a video camera that's then you're hacking into a webcam, essentially. One of the big reasons is depth of field subject isolation. So if you look at the Logitech basically has my background in sharp focus. So you can pretty much see, the cover of that book right there. You can see the divisions between the books where you can't see that on, let's say the Canon right here. You kind of look at the books, you look at the photo, right? It's kind of blurry. Same thing with the Sony. You look at all those things, it's kind of blurry. And then you kind of get into camera nerd stuff like, well, which bokeh do you like better and all that kind of stuff. And I think for the purposes of this video, that's somewhat irrelevant. What actually starts to come into the importance is, personal preference, which I sort of like the Sony better right now. But also the speed at which the camera is focusing and how accurately it's tracking, the face or the subject. And I gotta say, I think I like the Sony better. I think they have their speed of focusing figured out. So like when you do this, it seems like it gets it quickly, and then I pull it back and it gets it quickly, and it lands on my face without overdriving. Whereas you do this, and maybe it's not as fast, and then you do this, and then it's almost like the background was sharp for a second while it hunted. So not as awesome. So I think the photography characteristics of the cameras comes down to like sort of creative preference. But I think in terms of the way that the focus is operating, the Sony seems to be extremely impressive and maybe easier to use in that regard. Just real quick to go through some of the nerd stuff. Both of them are set to 30 frames a second. Both of them are HDMI out. HDMI 1080p, right? Although whatever the webcam utility is doing is kind of a question. I guess you could, by the time you look at it through YouTube's compression, it's probably going to look like shit anyway. Sorry. They're both doing 1/60th on the shutter, f3.5 on the aperture, and their ISO is set to auto. Both of them needed exposure compensation to be boosted. Now, the ISO is kind of an interesting point here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to turn off the key light. We're going to turn off the key light. My computer's struggling with all these cameras. We're going to turn off the key light. There we go. And you can see the Canon maybe works a little bit better, but I do have the saturation turned down a little bit, so I think that's why we're getting a little bit maybe of gray out of the Sony. That look and I've also turned down the contrast a little bit on the Sony, and basically that's just to help me with my skin tones, because when you turn up the contrast for me and you turn up the saturation, then it brings out the red in my face, and I'm already such a light-skinned guy that that starts to look real bad real fast. So we're going to turn on the key light here, and you can see how fast they adjust. It doesn't seem like the Canon is maybe doing the right thing as fast as the Sony is. And that's just kind of my observation doing this. Now, the Logitech, it's sort of unfair to put it in the mix with these two, because it's sort of like the 5-year-old trying to play with its, grown brothers. It does surprisingly well. It's a little bit overexposed right now, but in low light, and we'll turn this off again, in low light, might actually look the best of the three. So there's that. Let's talk about audio. Now, audio is where you really start to separate these things out versus their intended purpose. So the Sony does not have it has built-in only. It doesn't have a mic jack. That's a problem. That means that if you're using it outside of this studio where the audio is coming from some other source, it's going to suck. It's going to suck big time. The Canon, and this is its killer feature at its price point, is it has an external in. It also has the screen that flips around, so you can be the guy running the camera and the guy in front of the camera when you're off, having your adventures and telling the world about them. It works in that way. So really good for that. And obviously the Logitech is NA. You wouldn't use it anyway. And that's just a general thing for web conferencing. Anyway, you don't like the way that you end up with an echo is that you're using different devices for speakers and microphones. So you're either going to need to use, headphones for the audio out and then audio in some microphone. I think that's clunky. My best advice for web conferencing is just to get a desk speaker mic that's designed for it, that has the auto gain that is designed for it, and it works for that. So, but that audio is not like broadcast quality, so you're not going to want to use that in a sort of professional, quote professional, or any sort of scenario where someone's trying to consume that audio for enjoyment, or as some sort of broadcast product. So let's delete that last piece, and we can see what my conclusions are. These are best used for. So the Sony, this guy right here, I believe he is best for live streaming, and he's not really that bad or that hard to use as a webcam. In fact, you could ditch your Logitech if you wanted to go this route. And it's an expensive webcam. But if you're a total control freak or a hyper nerd, there you go. The Canon M50 is out of its depth in this regard. You would need to go up to one of the higher end Canons to get a clean HDMI out and then really use it the same way that we're using the Sony. However, as a content creation camera, it smokes the Sony because of the two features, which are the tilty flippy screen that flips out to the side, as well as the mic input. So again, if you're out on an adventure outside your little studio, and I guess a lot of us aren't doing it a lot, and that's why we're talking about this right now. But when Corona's over and we can all go outside again, yeah, it'll happen one way or the other. M50 is your camera. And then obviously, if you're just looking for a solid upgrade over what's built into your computer currently, the Logitech is a time-honored standard. And you can tell looking at it, what you get and what you don't get in terms of visual appeal. But anyway, it's solid as a webcam. And I've tried, just out of, just to throw this out here, I have also tried the Razer Cairo or Kiro or whatever it is, and it was not as good as the Logitech. So, and the lighting that it had on it is not a replacement for a key light. So if you're going down that path, just I'll save the trouble. Don't. You're better, getting a key light off Amazon, and you'd probably be cheaper anyway. So anyway, I hope this helped someone, and you guys enjoyed this. And if you did, hit that subscribe and like button, and leave a comment if you have a specific question. So I will talk to you later.